Tonight we are looking at 3 horrifying caving stories that went horribly wrong. In Gournier, the rain sends its bill and the exit drowns. At Sac Actun, one fin stroke erases the room. And at Pollnagollum, a familiar swim runs 2 meters too long. As always, viewer discretion is advised. This is Cavern Depths. The first story begins now, and it starts the way they all do, with a plan. On July 26, 2026, Marc Aubry and Sylvie Marchal paddled across the cold entrance lake of the Grotte de Gournier into one of the longest underground rivers you can follow anywhere in France. 15 kilometres of water-carved gallery under the Vercors. The river built it. The river still owns it. The plan was a classic day trip. Up the fossil gallery, down to the river, and out before dark. Marc was 45, a Grenoble caver who had surveyed these galleries for 20 years. The kind of quiet man who read a cave the way you read a friend's face. Sylvie was 49, a mountain nurse who had promised her son she would always file a call-out time and had never once missed it. Her habit was the lake photograph. Shoot the water level against the 3rd step of the entrance climb every trip and compare it to the last one. A river cave tells you its mood at the front door. The forecast gave them 6 dry hours, and the lake sat exactly where her last photograph had left it. What they didn't know, a storm cell had parked over the plateau, and up there it was already raining. The first kilometres ran like a postcard, gourds full of still water, drips clattering from the ceiling, the far-off hiss of a river you hear long before you see it. They reached the river gallery at noon, on schedule, boots in ankle-deep glitter. What she didn't know, the photograph she had taken that morning was already out of date. At 12:30, that is when the river changed its voice, because the plateau had finally sent the storm downstairs, and the quiet exit they had walked in through had already failed. The whisper under their boots picked up a drum line. The ankle-deep glitter went knee-deep in 20 minutes. The drum got louder. And this is where the trip stopped being about the schedule and became about the walls. Here is what you need to understand about a flood pulse in a river cave. It is not weather, it is a bill, and it arrives hours after the rain that ran it up. The sky you left can be blue while the mountain above you is still draining into your exit. So what do you do when your way out is the river itself? You stop asking the river and you start asking the walls. Panic reached for the exit and found a river there. The beach was gone. The crawl was trapped shut. The roar kept climbing. Because this is the arithmetic of a rising river. 10 centimetres an hour is a metre by morning, and the low crawl between you and daylight needs only 40 of them to become a full pipe. Watch 20 years of level photographs pay their dividend. Marc did not run for the entrance. He took Sylvie up the breakdown to the fossil balcony, 8 meters above the river, to the old flood shelf where a line of dried silt recorded the worst the water had ever done. They tied into a bolt, put on every layer they carried, and lit the stove. By 4 in the afternoon, the water had climbed 6 of their 8 meters of margin. Under them, the flood ate the gallery 1 shelf at a time, and the cold came off the water like a hand on the throat. Put yourself on that balcony for 1 hour of it. Water at 6 degrees drumming 40 centimetres below your boots, a silt line beside your shoulder that the flood has already matched. And under everything, the arithmetic of a call-out time that will not trip for 5 more hours. How long can one plateau keep raining into your exit? The honest answer is, longer than your stove. The flood crested at 9 in the evening, 20 centimetres above the old silt line, and held there for 1 full hour while the balcony shrank to the size of a bed. Then the drum lost its tempo. By 2 in the morning, the river was a stream again, and 14 cavers of the Vercors rescue roster, staged at the entrance since midnight by Sylvie's call-out, met 2 headlamps wading out under their own power. The club log recorded 2 cavers trapped 9 hours by a flood pulse, a crest 20 centimetres above the historic line, and a retreat it ruled textbook. High early, tied in, warm, and found exactly where the shelf said they would be. The photographs are mandatory now, and the third step has a painted scale. The longest underground river you can follow in France still runs its 15 kilometres under the Vercors, and it still sends the bill hours after the rain. Ask the walls, not the river, Mark tells the new members. The report recorded 9 hours on the balcony. Both cavers survived every centimetre of them. You're watching Cavern Depths, and this is the second story of the night. On June 7th, 2026, Dana Reyes and Owen Clark dropped through a jungle pool near Tulum into the Sistema Sac Actun, the longest underwater cave system on Earth. 380 kilometers of flooded stone passage threaded on a single thin line. The water was cold glass. The line was everything. The plan was a routine survey leg. 400 meters in on the gold line, tie in a side spool, map one junction, and come home on thirds. Dana was 29, a Tulum guide who had logged 600 cave dives, the kind of diver instructors point at when you ask what calm looks like. Owen was 33, a quiet Canadian who had promised his wife a text from the surface after every dive, and whose tanks were always 10 bar fuller than the plan required. Her habit was the two-finger rule, the guideline running through curled fingers every dive, from the moment the daylight zone faded behind them. You do not hold the line, she taught, you wear it. Their regulators hissed on schedule, 200 bar each, 40 minutes of gas budgeted in thirds. What they didn't know, the junction they had come to map sat under a ceiling of silt so fine it hangs in the water like held breath. The first 400 meters ran like liturgy. Bubbles gurgling along the ceiling, the line humming under her fingers, white stones sliding past at 18 meters of depth. They reached the junction at minute 14 on schedule, and Dana let go of the line with both hands, 4 seconds, to pass Owen the survey spool. What she didn't know, his trim had failed a degree, and one fin stroke was already turning the room to smoke. That is when the junction disappeared, because a single downdraft off his fin had seized the silt ceiling, and the clearest water on Earth went to zero visibility between one breath and the next. Her hands came back to where the line lived, and the line was not there. 4 seconds had moved her half a meter, and this is where you learn that half a meter in silt is a country. Here is what you need to understand about a silt out. It is not darkness, your lamp still burns. It is blindness with the lights on, a wall of glowing brown a hand's width from your mask, and every movement you make to fix it feeds it. So what do you do when the one thread home is somewhere inside the smoke? You stop. You anchor. You search like a surveyor, not like a drowning animal. Panic knocked on her regulator with every breath. The line was dead. The room stayed brown. Her gauge kept falling. Because this is the arithmetic of a lost line. The search must cost less than a third of your gas. Dana's third was 40 bar, and a panicked diver breathes her 40 bar in 6 minutes flat. Watch 600 dives cash out in the dark. She tied her spare spool to a rock spur before she moved a fin, and breathed the panic down to a count of 4 in, 4 out. Then the drill she had rehearsed on 100 bored afternoons. Sweep flat arcs from the anchor, each pass 1 meter wider, the spool paying out behind her so that even the search could be undone. Where do you aim an arc when every direction is the same brown? You aim low, because a line under tension sags toward the floor. At minute 6, her gauge read 60 bar, and the arcs had grown to 3 meters. Put yourself inside that smoke for 1 minute of it. A regulator hissing too fast in your own ears, a nylon thread somewhere close that you cannot see, and the arithmetic of a shrinking third burning down while your fingers read the floor like a blind woman reading a door. Her knuckles found it at minute 9. The gold line, taut and humming, with Owen's lamp making a brown halo 2 meters down it. He had done his half of the drill, which is the hard half. Hold the line, hold still, and let her come to him. They came home on thirds with 11 bar to spare, through water already healing itself behind them. The dive log recorded a 9-minute lost line search at 18 meters, resolved by the book. Anchor first, arc second, panic never. The junction carries a permanent jump spool now, and the briefing at that cenote begins with her 4 seconds. The longest underwater cave on Earth still threads its 380 kilometers under the jungle, one thin line at a time. You do not hold the line, you wear it, Dana still tells her students, and now they know why. The report recorded 9 minutes inside the silt. She survived every arc of them. You're watching Cavern Depths, and tonight's final story is the one they still talk about. On March 8, 2026, Aoife Brennan led her younger brother Declan down the mossy entrance shake hole of Pollnagollum, the longest cave in Ireland. 16 kilometers of cold stream passage under the grey limestone of County Clare. Water built every meter of it. Water still patrols it. The plan was their winter classic, down the streamway to the far duck, one short breath hold through, an hour in the galleries beyond, and home for tea. Aoife was 34, a Clare caver who had mapped this system for a decade, the sort of leader who counts her party out loud at every junction, whether you like it or not. Declan was 31, strong and easy in the water, the club's best swimmer, 20 trips through that duck in his logbook and a grin for every one of them. His habit was the breath count, 40 seconds held on the approach, every trip, timed against his watch at the pool edge. The duck itself took 8. The other 32, he liked to say, were the margin. And margin is what you breathe when plans go sideways. The duck was a known quantity. 2 meters of flooded passage under a gravel arch, a fixed handline bolted through it, air on both sides. What they didn't know, the wettest winter in 40 years had been rebuilding it since November. The streamway ran loud and familiar, water gurgling over ledges, drips ticking off the roof, boots scraping the cobbles you learn by heart down there. The far duck's pool sat exactly where it always sat, black and patient. Declan clipped his helmet light, counted his 40 at the edge, and took the handline in both hands. What she didn't know, the winter floods had shifted the gravel floor, and the 2 meters in his logbook now ran 7, and the handline had not grown with them. He went under at 4 in the afternoon, and that is when the known quantity stopped being known, because the line ran out in the middle of the dark, and the handline's last bolt had failed a meter short of where the gravel now ended. Aoife watched his light shrink to a green smudge, and then the pool went dark, and the water settled, and the sump did not give him back. And this is where the story stops being his and becomes hers. Here is what you need to understand about a regraded sump. The survey is a photograph, and the flood is an editor. A duck you have swum 20 times is not the duck you swim the 21st time, and nothing on the surface of that black pool will tell you what changed underneath it. So what does the person at the pool edge do with 40 seconds of silence? She counts. It is the hardest counting there is. Panic put her hand on the handline anyway. The line had failed. The pool stayed shut. Her count ran out. Because this is the arithmetic of a breath-hold sump. A rescuer on one lungful has the same 7 meters and less information, and a second body in the gravel saves nobody. Watch the worst discipline a person can be asked to keep. Aoife did not go under. She marked the pool with her spare light, shouted his name into the dark until the echo came back empty, and then she ran. 90 minutes of streamway alone, counting junctions out loud to nobody, to the shake hole, to a farmhouse phone, to the words every club dreads, caver overdue at the far duck. Put yourself at that pool edge for 1 minute of it. A spare light burning on a rock, a handline going slack in black water, and the arithmetic of 40 seconds, then 60, then a number you stop saying out loud. What would you have done with the line in your hand? Every caver answers that question quietly and hopes never to sit the exam. The cave diving team reached the duck by 10 that night, 6 divers rotating on proper tanks and proper line. They found the new gravel bank, the old handline ending a meter short of it, and Declan 2 meters beyond the end of the line, where the passage turned up toward air he never reached. The inquest recorded a sump regraded by winter flooding from 2 meters to 7, a fixed line left over from the old geometry, and a death no training on the day could have undone. The Far Duck is gated in winter now, and the line is inspected every spring, and the pool carries a brass plate with his name. The longest cave in Ireland still runs its 16 kilometres under the grey karst of Clare. The survey is a photograph, and the flood is an editor, the club teaches now, in a course that carries his name. The report recorded that Declan died 2 meters short of air. The divers recovered him the next morning, and his sister brought him home.